Hello, hello to my replay viewers. Hi everyone, this is DrZhana. I'm a sex researcher, professor of human sexuality at New York University, and I do regular scopes on things related to sexual health, sex science, sex education. I have some really interesting new science for you, and it has to do, Heidi, with circumcision and how it affects penile sensitivity. It's a new study that just got published in the academic literature and has been going all around all around the media, getting reported on it left and right. And there's been a lot of misreporting of this particular study. So I wanted to go a bit in the details of what they found and, where we stand with the actual research. So that's what we're going to talk about today. Bring some people in, swipe left or right on iOS, swipe up on Android, and invite some followers. Because I think this is really fascinating, and there's a lot of people out there interested in this particular topic. I don't have circumcision. It's God? I don't think it's God. So, hi, Katie. Thank you. It's cleaner. Sure, if you don't have access to running water and bathroom, but most of us these days do. So, hi Tina, welcome. I'm doing well. So, these lectures have helped your marriage? Well, that's amazing. That's awesome. Does a hysterectomy? It's really not the same question. A hysterectomy. So someone's saying, does hysterectomy reduce the sensitivity of the vagina? The uterus is not part of the vagina, whereas the foreskin is actually part of the penis. So very different, very different. Exactly, your uterus is not part of your vagina. So you're rather attached to your foreskin? Probably. Okay, so that's what we're going to talk about. My name is DrZhana. If you don't know me, I'm a sex researcher and a professor of human sexuality at New York University. I don't study circumcision. I study casual sex, non-monogamy, and sexual orientation, and I teach human sexuality at New York University. So that's what I do, but I do regular scopes on Periscope talking about all sorts of sexual education kind of stuff. And you can find me on other social media as DrZhana, as Howard said. And if you don't follow me already, I hope you click on that Perry Buddy in the corner and follow Dr. Z. So this is about a new study that just got published that tested the sensitivity, the physical sensitivity of the penis, of different parts of the penis among men who were circumcised and who weren't circumcised. And it's been reported widely in the media and actually quite misreported. So I want to talk to you about what this study did, what they found, and what the implications of that are. So one more time, swipe left or right on iOS, swipe up on Android, and invite some followers, and I will chat with you about this. So I know Prince died. It's really sad. It's really sad. So you want your foreskin back? Yeah, I know a lot of people who were taken their foreskins without their consent and would like it back. Sadly, you can't quite get it back. Circumcision will not make your dick bigger, nor will it make it smaller. It does not change the size of your penis. Okay, so you ready for some science? Okay, so this is what happened. And by the way, if there is foreskin restoration, yes, that's true, Janet. It's not necessarily as effective and successful as the original foreskin is, because it's a different kind of skin. And that type of skin, you can't grow that back. You can extend, a little bit for what you for the skin that's already there. You can kind of extend it and get it over the shaft and over the glans, but it's not you've taken out a lot of that foreskin area. So, and it takes some serious dedication, indeed. So, okay, this is what happened basically last week. A study got published that took about 60 people, 60 men, ages 18 to 37, half of which were circumcised as children, and half of them were not circumcised. They were intact. And then what they did was they actually placed, the little, sort of little, filaments on their penises to be able to tell when they actually start to feel something or when they don't feel like anything has been placed in their penis. It's a way to test tactile sensitivity, how sensitive to touch their penises were. They also tested them with warmth, how sensitive to warmth they were, and then also the extreme levels of touch and warmth, which is pain and heat. So they tested 4 different sensations: touch, pain, heat, and warmth on 4 different parts of the penis: on the glans or the head, on two parts of the shaft, so kind of midway and the baseline. And then on the guys who did have a foreskin, they also tested the outside of the foreskin. And then as a control, they tested the forearm. So, and then they compared, right, whether there were differences in this regard. So, you ready for, yes, we'll talk about some of the issues. So let me tell you what the findings were, and then we'll talk about some of the issues. So, what they found was that on the glans, or the head, and on the 2 points along the shaft of the penis, there was no difference in any of these. So pain, heat, touch, or warmth, there was no difference between the men who were circumcised and the men who weren't circumcised. Right? They were equally sensitive to these 4 different types of sensations along the parts of the penis that they all had. Okay? So circumcision did not seem to have negatively affected sensitivity on the remaining parts of the penis. However, this is the interesting part. The foreskin, among those men who had a foreskin still, the foreskin was the most sensitive part of the penis to touch and to a large extent warmth as well. So among the guys themselves who had a foreskin, the outside of the foreskin was more sensitive than the glans, was more sensitive than the midline of the shaft, and more sensitive than the baseline of the shaft. Right? So, yes, there's 20,000 nerve endings in the foreskin area that men who are circumcised just simply don't have. So so there's good news. If we accept these findings as correct, as accurate as true, then there's some good news and some bad news for the men who are circumcised when it comes to penile sensitivity. On one hand, it seems like the removal of the foreskin doesn't affect the sensitivity of the rest of their penis. However, the bad news is that they have lost the most sensitive part of their penis, which is the foreskin. 2 main issues with the study. One is the sample size was fairly small to detect effects in these particular outcomes. So when you test for sensitivity, for heat, pain, touch, and warmth sensitivity, you need more people than the 60 that were tested. You need about 120 or maybe 250 people in order to find significant differences, meaningful effects. The even bigger problem is that they only tested men who were up to 37 years old. And there's an argument that lack of foreskin can lead to decreased sensitivity to the rest of the penis later in life. So what we still need to do is test older men in their 40s, 50s, and 60s to see whether their glans and shaft of the penis is still no significantly sensitive than the glans and the shaft of the penises of those who are not circumcised. And also, this study excluded men who suffered from some sort of sexual dysfunction. And if you want to argue that, for example, the foreskin, by decreasing sensitivity, perhaps to the rest of the penis, might lead to more men struggling with erectile dysfunction, those men were not, that effect could not have been found. So, thank you. If you're loving the scope, please share it with other people. So those were the findings and those were the issues. Now I can, engage with you a little bit. We can chat a little bit about this and I can answer some of your questions. And please share it with your followers if you want more people to learn about that. And if for some reason you're not following DrZhana already, I hope you click on that Perry Buddy and follow Dr. Z, because we always have conversations about sexuality and sexual science. Define lasting a long time. Oh, well, that's pretty, subjective. Oh, thank you, Lee. So, what is the current percentage of babies being circumcised in the USA? It's unclear. In general, about 70% of US men have been circumcised. That number was brought down to about 50%. Up until recently, but then the CDC, the Center for Disease and Control, recently came out with guidelines suggesting circumcision for babies because of its supposed health benefits, because circumcised men seem to be less prone to certain sexually transmitted infections than are uncircumcised men. So for the new people who just came in, hi and welcome. My name is DrZhana. I'm a sex researcher and professor of human sexuality at New York University. And I do regular scopes and things related to sexual health, sex science, sex education. Right now, we're talking about a new study that looked at penile sensitivity among men who were circumcised versus not circumcised. So prior research in Africa has found that men who are circumcised are less prone to HIV. That doesn't mean they are completely protected against HIV. That just means that their chances of getting HIV seem to be smaller than the men who were uncircumcised. And the reasoning behind it seems to be that the foreskin, the cells of the foreskin can also get infected by HIV. And so that sort of increases your chances of getting HIV overall. However, there are many better, more effective ways of preventing HIV than circumcision. They're called condoms. And I wouldn't want to rely on my child not getting HIV because he's circumcised. I would rather him, sort of use condoms to protect against HIV or take PrEP to protect himself against HIV. So, however, because of these findings, the CDC, the Center for Disease and Control in the U.S., which is sort of the federal governing body regarding health and diseases, did recently come out with the first federal guidelines for circumcision, sort of arguing or recommending circumcision because of these some of these health benefits. Now, again, my personal view on that is that this is not medically necessary. It may have some medical benefits later in life. However, it's not a medically necessary procedure, and it's something that is irreversible. So every man should decide for himself whether he wants that or not when he's, old enough to decide that for himself. But Team Foreskin, Foreskin, all that matters. Yes, I agree, atheist. It's an irreversible bodily modification that is not medically necessary. Even if you could argue that it's somewhat medically beneficial, but that benefit is, first of all, not going to potentially manifest until later in life, at which point the man is old enough to decide for himself. It's no different than giving a baby a tattoo or piercing, except that a tattoo or piercing, Geo, is kind of more reversible than a foreskin. You can get rid of a tattoo, and a piercing can certainly heal. So, yeah, so I think it's more immoral in that sense. Now, I understand the cultural differences, religious reasons, Muslims and Jews circumcise boys for religious reasons, and, a lot of people won't argue with that. So if you're free to do, as long as it's not illegal in your country, you're free to do whatever you want to your children. I would not do that to my child. But right now we're discussing sort of, are there any physical benefits or sensitivity benefits in terms of sexual pleasure that make a difference, right? How is Bo? I don't know. How is Bo, Gio? If you're here for my breasts, you are so in the wrong scope. You will not see my breasts in the scope. I can't think of a study on erectile dysfunction. "50% of the circumcised are known to have something done wrong with the circumcision." Janet, that's not correct. That is not true. Most circumcisions done by, sort of in medical settings, the way circumcision is done in the U.S. today, they don't end up botched. No, they end up fine, but I think sex is pleasurable to both cut and uncut men, and thank, nature for that. Yes, so what this study found, a quick recap, was that the rest of the penis, so the shaft and the glans, the head of the penis, among circumcised and uncircumcised men were equally sensitive to pain, heat, touch, and warmth. However, the foreskin itself among the men who had a foreskin was more sensitive to touch and to warmth than all the other parts of the penis, and also was more sensitive than the other parts of the penis among the circumcised men. So the foreskin seems to be the most sensitive part of the penis, and they only tested the outside of the foreskin. They only tested the outside of the foreskin. And what a lot of men are saying, and it seems to be that it's the inside of the foreskin that is particularly sensitive. So if they had tested the inside of the foreskin, they may have found even greater effects. So there you go. Certainly, sex is pleasurable for both circumcised and uncircumcised men. Yes, the foreskin was found to be more sensitive to pain and to warmth, to touch and to warmth, but not pain or heat than the glans. Yes, of course, most men will only have had one type of penis for the vast majority of their lives, so they can't quite make the comparisons. Do I think it's important for a little boy to look like his dad in regards to circumcision? I personally don't. I personally think that it's more important that the boy has all the parts that he has up until the point that he's old enough to decide that he doesn't want certain parts. There is something to be said about looking like dad, but we don't look like our parents. We're not identical to our parents in many different ways. Like, you could argue, well, should a girl have the same boob size as her mom? And if she doesn't have, if her boobs are smaller than her mom's boobs, should we give her, breast augmentation surgery when she hits puberty? How important is it for the boy to have blonde hair like his dad? Should we dye his hair so that he would look I don't think that's a very good argument in that sense. And yes, there is the point of how many of us actually stare at our dad's penis. I think a more consequential question is, the boy looking like other boys of his generation. So the locker room thing might have more of an effect. So if you have a culture where everyone is circumcised, you being the only one who's not, or you being one of the the two boys in class who are uncircumcised, and people see that as a important difference, and you're being made fun of, and also the women or your partners, whether male or female, whatever your partners are, if they're used to circumcised penises, and all of a sudden they see you as an uncircumcised, so you might get sort of ostracized or in some way made fun of for your status. I think that's actually more consequential, and I could see an argument for that more than looking like the dad. And we do know that, some men who aren't circumcised in the U.S. end up, getting a circumcision at the age of 18, 20, 19, 20 because they've experienced, a number of years of being either bullied or made fun of or, in some way kind of disparaged for having a different penis, because most men are circumcised in the U.S. and most, women and men who have male partners are used to circumcised penises, and they see uncircumcised penises as ugly or unclean. They didn't test whether it was related to climax. FGM is worse than circumcising. I think that's debatable, and it also depends on what kind of female genital cutting. There are types of genital cutting that only remove the foreskin of the clitoris, which is the exact same thing that happens with the foreskin of the penis. Now, there are other types of female genital cutting that remove the entire clitoris or the entire external portion of the clitoris, and then there are parts of female genital cutting, types of genital cutting that remove the labia, the lips, as well as the clitoris. So that is a different, a whole different level. But there are parts of Africa and the Middle East where the type of circumcision for women that happens is literally just removing the prepuce, the foreskin of the clitoris. My son is 6 and he's not circumcised. Yeah. Oh, till Paris is quite something. Yeah, so I think these are important things to know. They're important things to think about. Ultimately, it's your body if you still have it, and it's your child's body if you have children to make these decisions for. But so someone's saying, then what if you are going to be made fun of, or what if you know that your child is going to be made fun of? I think my personal decision would be to not alter my child's body in a way that's irreversible without his consent, and then sort of prepare him. If I live in a culture where everyone is circumcised, and he might get to, potentially be subjected to some sort of peer pressure or peer ostracism on that front, I would try to prepare him for that. I would try to explain, what are some of the issues that he might encounter, and, explain that things are very different in other parts of the world, that if we lived in Europe or in Asia or in Latin America, that things would, be very different, that he would be sort of the normative, the type of body, and someone who is circumcised would be, the outcast, and, hope for the best. That would be my personal, and that if he was really bothered by it, that he can choose to do that when he's 18. Why don't I call them dicks? What, penises? So, there you go. Though I was just reading about something that more and more schools don't have the locker room issue anymore, and more like gyms are not providing that kind of an environment, so that fewer and fewer men and women get to see one another naked in the locker room. Okay, so I am going to, so Natasha, thank you. So that's what I had to share with you. If you came in late and didn't hear sort of the science behind it, penile, yes it is. I am going to do a quick recap of the study. Please invite your followers if you would like other people to hear about the study, because you might end up seeing it. It's been written all over the media. And so it was misreported pretty badly. Let me put that dick in your mouth. I don't think that's going to happen. I have this very distinct feeling that that's not going to happen. You can try to fit your penis in my mouth on your screen. I wholly endorse that attempt. Okay, so swipe left or right on iOS, swipe up on Android if you want to invite some followers. I'm going to do a quick recap before I say goodbye. If you came in late, so stick around for the next couple of minutes. I would be like flossing, I'm sure. And if you don't follow DrZhana already, I hope you click on that Peribuddy in the corner and follow Dr. Z. Does foreskin rip easily? No, they don't. They do not rip easily. Every now and then it happens. Every now and then it can happen, but it doesn't happen very easily. They're pretty robust. Okay, so if you just came in, hi, my name is DrZhana. I'm a sex researcher and professor of human sexuality at New York University. I'm not a medical kind of doctor. I'm a PhD kind of doctor, and I have a PhD in developmental psychology from Cornell University. I do regular scopes and things related to sexual health, sex science, sex education, and other sexy things. What I'm talking about today is sharing some new data on penile sensitivity among circumcised versus uncircumcised men. So here's the download on what has been found in this new study. And if you want to read the study itself, please go on my Instagram or Facebook or Twitter, and they're all under DrZhana, DrZhana, and you can read, there's a link to the study itself. So what they found, they tested 60 men, 30 of which were circumcised, 30 of which were uncircumcised. And they tested the sensitivity of different parts of the penis on pain, touch, warmth, and heat. So these 4 different sensations. What they found was that the glans, or the head, and the shaft, 2 points along the shaft of the penis, was no different in terms of sensitivity among circumcised versus uncircumcised men. So the good news for the guys who are cut is that the parts of the penis that they still have, the glans and the shaft, are not any less sensitive than the glans and the shaft in uncircumcised men. The bad news for the cut guys, however, is that among the uncut guys, the foreskin was the most sensitive to touch and warmth, not heat or pain, part of all the 4 parts of the penis that they tested. So the foreskin was more sensitive than the glans, the head was more sensitive than the mid portion of the shaft of the penis, and more sensitive than the base of the penis. So basically, by removing the foreskin, the most sensitive part of the penis has been removed. And by the way, they only tested the outside of the foreskin, not the inside of the foreskin. And a lot of men with foreskins claim that the inside is particularly sensitive. So they may have found even greater differences if they had tested the inside. Couple of caveats with this study is that the sample size was actually pretty small to detect differences with these penile sensitivity tests. So more people would have been necessary to really detect an effect. And another issue is that they only tested people, men up to 37 years old. And it is possible that that the foreskin does have an effect in preserving sensitivity of the rest of the penis, but that doesn't manifest until later in life. So we still need to do a similar study with guys who are 40, 50, 60, and so on. Okay, everyone, that's what I had for you today. Do you ever think about work during my private life? Sometimes, and vice versa. So that's what I had for you. I hope you enjoyed this. I hope you found this useful. Do you uncut get stink dick? If you don't wash your penis, it will stink. And if you're uncut, it will stink sooner than if you are cut. Luckily, we live in the modern world, most of us, where we have access to soap and water, running water and soap. And so it's really easy to get rid of the smegma. It's really easy to wash your dick. So just please wash your dick. And that's it. And that will solve that issue. No, foreskins don't tear easily. They tear every now and then, but Does cut or uncut make a difference for the women receiving? They do if you're not using condoms. When you're not using condoms, it's much easier to jerk off an uncircumcised cock, and also you need a lot less lube because there's a lot less friction when you're having sex with an uncircumcised penis. Because what happens is the foreskin is kind of what stays in place, and so you know the shaft kind of glides inside that foreskin, and there isn't that much friction between the penis and the vagina. Whereas when you have a cut dick, each time you go in and out, it basically scrapes along, the penis scrapes along the walls of the vagina, and so there's more friction, there's more possibility for you know, some sort of tearing, and that's why you need more lube when you're having sex with circumcised penises than when you're having sex with uncircumcised penises. And the preference for women depends entirely on where they're from. So American women will tell you that they prefer cut penises. Jewish and Muslim women will tell you that they prefer cut penises because that's what they're used to. That's what their culture considers normal. European women who are not Jewish or Muslim, South American and Central American women who are not Jewish or Muslim, Asian women who are not Jewish or Muslim, all of them will tell you that their preference is for uncut penises. So can you give your partner a yeast infection if you don't clean? Not really. No. You're from the States, but you prefer uncut. Well, yes, of course. It's not like 100%. There are people in either cultural regions that will have the sort of the unusual preference. But on average, right, that's, what do I prefer? Well, I was raised on uncut penises. I'm European. So for the first 24 years of my life, pretty much all I saw, not all, you know, there were some exceptions, but most of the penises that I had encountered were uncut. But then I moved to the U.S., and for the last 10 years, I've lived in the U.S., and the majority of the penises I encounter here happen to be cut. So, you know, I'm an equal opportunity lover. I will not say no to you if you're cut or uncut. That is not the defining factor. Ty Tesla, Coke is definitely better uncut. I married a Jew, so he didn't really have much choice in the matter. And no, really twisted, no. Okay, everyone. This has been fun. Thanks for being here. Kenneth Play is Asian, so he's uncut. Does it bother him not having choice? A little bit. I mean, you know, accept whatever your dick is like. I always say, you know, love your penis, whatever it looks like. So. Okay, I gotta go. I got some more work to do. I will be back. Oh, tomorrow I'll be at the Alternative Sex Conference all day. I'm talking about consensual non-monogamy. There are other people who will be talking about kink and different types of kink and edge play and different sort of things. We're going to try and live stream maybe a little bit. I'm going to try and talk to some people. Someone told me that Howard Stern was going to be at the conference interviewing people. I don't know. If I meet Howard Stern, I will scope him if he lets me do that. So I won't be able to scope the whole conference because it's a paid kind of conference. So they, if you want to watch the stream, a live stream, or want to watch the stream, you need to register and pay some registration fee for that. But I will try to scope a little bit from there. So I will see you at some point tomorrow. I love you all, and yeah, see you tomorrow. Bye. The name of the conference is Alt Sex Conference, and you can find it at alt as an alternative, Alt Sex NYC conference.org. All right. Bye.